The night was colder than usual, and the wind howled through the dense forest like a warning from the shadows themselves. Somewhere in the distance, a faint rustling broke the silence, a sound almost lost in the symphony of the wild. And yet, that sound would change the course of human history forever. Imagine a time when humans were prey, when the wild was law, and survival was the only measure of worth. It was here, amidst fear and hunger, that an unlikely friendship was born between man and the creature we now call the wolf. He crouched low by the fire, his hands trembling not from the cold, but from the anticipation. His tribe had long feared the forest, and yet they relied upon it for food, for life itself. The hunt had been poor that day, and the gnawing hunger in his belly was mirrored in the anxious eyes of his fellow tribesmen. Then, from the darkness, a pair of glowing eyes appeared, reflecting the flames. A wolf, or perhaps a wolf pup, cautious but curious, stepped into the circle of firelight. It did not growl. It did not flee. It simply watched. The first instinct was fear. Fear of sharp teeth, fear of death, fear of the unknown. But there was something in its gaze, something that mirrored his own longing. He could feel it, an echo of solitude, an understanding beyond words. Hunger had brought him close, yes, but curiosity kept him frozen. For hours, they stared at each other, the fire crackling between them like a fragile bridge. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the wolf moved closer. The first touch was accidental. A paw brushed against his leg, and a shiver ran through him, not from fear, but from realization. This creature, this wild being, could become more than a threat. It could become a companion. But trust was not given lightly. He reached out a trembling hand, and the wolf flinched. But it did not run. That night, the boundaries of predator and prey began to blur. Days turned into weeks. The wolf returned, always cautious, always at a distance. He would leave scraps of meat, sometimes merely sitting and watching as the creature consumed it. Slowly, patterns emerged, and with them, understanding. The wolf learned the sound of his footsteps, the smell of his scent. And he, in turn, learned the rhythm of the wolf's movements, the subtleties of its behavior. Hunger was the initial bridge, but curiosity and patience became the threads that wove them together. In the harshness of the wild, communication took forms beyond words. A tilt of the head, a low growl, a soft whine. Each gesture carried meaning. And slowly, the impossible happened. They began to anticipate each other. The wolf would follow him at a distance during hunts, scouting the terrain, warning of dangers unseen. And in return, he shared his fire, his warmth, his food. Survival had given way to something greater. Trust. The tribe, at first, was skeptical. Wolves were dangerous, unpredictable, and loyal only to their own. And yet, they began to notice subtle changes. The wolf, once a creature of the shadows, now lingered near the camp, never aggressive, always watchful. The children laughed as it allowed them to approach. The elders nodded in cautious approval. Slowly, the boundaries of fear began to crumble, replaced by fascination, but not all lessons came easily. There were nights of tension, of tests, of near disaster. The wolf, after all, was still wild. One evening, a rival pack approached, scenting the intruder in their territory. Growls erupted, fangs flashed in the moonlight, and the forest became a battlefield. But the wolf stood his ground beside the human, not as a predator defending his kill, but as a friend protecting a companion. That night, a bond was sealed in blood and courage, a bond that would echo through generations. Food became a shared ritual. They hunted together, strategized silently, relying on instincts honed over millennia. The wolf taught him patience, focus, and the art of reading the wilderness. And in return, the human taught the wolf safety, the comfort of fire, and the strange delight of companionship. They were no longer separate beings in the struggle for survival. They were a unit, a partnership forged by necessity and solidified by trust. Over time, the wolf began to change. Its behavior shifted subtly but undeniably. Playfulness crept into its movements, a willingness to seek human attention, a recognition of the fire as a source of safety, not just light. And in him, the human, a new understanding blossomed. The wild was not merely something to fear or conquer. It was something to respect, to learn from, and perhaps even to love. The forest, once a place of terror, became a classroom. Every rustling leaf, every distant howl, every shifting shadow was a lesson in coexistence. The wolf was both teacher and student, guiding him through the labyrinth of instincts and survival. And with each passing day, the line between human and wolf blurred further. They laughed together in silent ways, sharing the small joys that come from trust earned, not demanded. One fateful morning, the tribe awoke to a scene that would never be forgotten. The wolf, once wary and aloof, now lay beside the fire, head resting gently on the human's lap. No words were spoken, none were needed. In that quiet moment, history shifted imperceptibly. The first step toward domestication, the first chapter in the story of mankind and the creatures who would become our companions, had been written, but the journey was far from over. There were challenges ahead, lessons yet to be learned. Not all humans understood the power of trust. Not all wolves could be tamed. And yet, the seed had been planted. From the flickering firelight of that first night to the laughter of children and the watchful eyes of elders, a new era was dawning. A partnership that would change the course of survival, of hunting, of living, not as separate beings, but as allies in the vast, untamed wilderness. The wolf rose, stretching, muscles rippling beneath fur that now carried the scent of home. He nudged the human gently, a silent promise of loyalty, a pledge that this bond was not fleeting. And the human, with a mixture of awe and understanding, returned the gesture, placing a hand upon the wolf's head. The future was uncertain, the world vast and perilous, but together, they had discovered something immortal, the power of connection, the magic of companionship, the spark that would one day ignite the long journey of dogs at our side. As the sun pierced the horizon, painting the forest in gold, they stood together, a man and a wolf, at the edge of the unknown. Behind them, fear and solitude melted away, replaced by the trust that only comes when two beings recognize themselves in one another. And in that recognition, the first true friendship between human and wolf was forged, not in conquest, not in domination, but in understanding, respect, and a quiet, unbreakable bond. And so, the first step had been taken. A small paw print in the dirt, a human hand extended, a spark of courage ignited in the wilderness. Little did they know, this was the beginning of a story that would echo through millennia, a story of loyalty, survival, and the extraordinary journey of the human heart learning to walk alongside the wild. The wind carried a new sound now, not the howl of a predator, but the harmony of two spirits intertwined. The forest held its breath, bearing witness to the birth of a friendship that would one day conquer distance, time, and the wild itself. The wolf, once a shadow of fear, had become a shadow of hope, and the human, once vulnerable and alone, had discovered a companion unlike any other, a friend, a guardian, a teacher, and a kindred spirit. That night, as stars flickered like distant fires in the sky, they lay beneath the vast canopy, side by side. Neither spoke, yet the world understood the message of trust, courage, and the extraordinary bond that had begun. And in the quiet, the human knew one thing for certain. This was not just survival. This was the dawn of a journey that would shape the destiny of mankind and the creatures who walked silently beside.